Kia ora team, and welcome to our 7th video on Achievement Standard 91502, where we are taking a closer look at some of the theories of violence in sport. Leading outcome for today is to understand the difference between internal and external perspectives of violence, and to list and describe a range of theories of violence identified by Young, 2012. So, internal versus external perspectives. Ella in 2006 summarised a range of literature to explain that most experts place the sources of violence as originating from either internal or external perspectives. We've spoken in previous videos around the definitions of violence in sport. This video will serve to further shape those definitions and look at actual theories relating to violence. Internal and external perspectives of violence can be classified into biology and psychology for internal, and sociology and anthropology for external. When we say biology and psychological perspectives, we're talking about the source of violence coming from within someone's mind, personality, or genes. Sociology and anthropology perspectives refer to the sources of violence originating from social situations, values, or structures within which someone may find themselves. The term anthropology is simply the study of humankind with a specific focus on human societies, cultures, and their development. We're going to take a look at two theories from each of the internal and external sources of violence. These will only be a small sample of theories around violence. And if you'd like to take a look at a few more, please come and see me to borrow the book Sport, Violence and Society by Kevin Young. We'll start with the internal, or rather the biological and psychological perspective. The first theory we're going to look at briefly is the instinct theory, followed by the hostile and instrumental aggression approach. Looking at the instinct theory first, there's three key arguments or assumptions that we can challenge with this theory. The first being that humans are naturally aggressive. Aggression is an instinctive biological drive. Humans lack a natural mechanism for inhibiting aggression, and it is possible to assume from physical appearance someone's capacity to be violent. So Young explains that many of the classic early thinkers, such as Aristotle for example, believed that humans were violent by nature. Because our oldest ancestors were naturally aggressive, modern day humans share the same trait or lack of inhibition. The instinct theory really gained popularity in the 20th century. Then more recently, Deutschmann described how physical appearances such as facial characteristics, skull shape, and body type could help determine someone's predisposition to commit crime. Young goes on to say that the instinct theory represents a contradictory view of society. It also fails to address the fact that aggressive behaviour varies enormously by individual. You only need to look at professional sports people to see that when athletes are exposed to the same cues, not all of them respond with aggression by retaliating or fighting. The great Richie McCaw is a prime example of this. How many cheap shots and dirty hits has he taken without retaliating or fighting with the opposition? Compare that to someone like Paul Gallen from the Sharks, who seems to respond aggressively to the tiniest of violent cues. Hostile and instrumental aggression approach. Three key arguments or assumptions to challenge. Humans use aggression to achieve specific goals. Hostile aggression or angry aggression is used intentionally to inflict harm or damage, and instrumental aggression is used strategically to achieve a goal other than harming the individual or target. So this theory is predicated on the view that aggression is intentional and can be divided into hostile or instrumental approaches. Instrumental aggression does not pursue the goal of personal injury or hurt, but rather looks to achieve an external or related goal. A good example of instrumental aggression in New Zealand sport is when our national or local sport teams, in particular the All Blacks, perform a haka prior to the match. So this aggression is not to cause actual injury, but rather to achieve an external goal of intimidation, fear, or some other psychological advantage before going into battle. On the flip side, hostile aggression does pursue the goal of inflicting damage for the main purpose of harming someone. Sticking with the rugby theme here, an obvious example of hostile aggression is when players take to the ruck or opposition's head with their boots. This deliberate act of violence is intended to physically hurt an opposition player by making contact with their steel sprugs to the opposition's body or head while hoping to be obstructed or out of sight of cameras and referees. Young believes this theory has potential applications to a range of aggressive acts and strategies within sport, but Bushman and Anderson note that this theory is often criticized for being too simplistic. Moving on to the sociology and anthropology theories of violence, we're going to look at the social learning theory, followed by the sports ethic perspective. Social learning theory, and the three key arguments or assumptions that we can challenge are: aggression does not come from biological cues but from observing and modeling the behavior of others. Through observation, humans learn how aggression may be used to perform roles, to construct and conform identity, and to promote rewards. Aggression as an emotional release does not serve society well. Young states that the main argument of the social learning theory is that aggressive behavior does not come from biological drives, but is more to do with how punishment and reward play a role in modeling behavior. Bandura, who developed the social learning theory, argues that aggression and violence is learned through observation and imitation, and also by witnessing the consequences of other people's actions. He then goes on to state that if someone participating in aggressive behavior determines the result to be pleasurable, meaningful, or rewarding, then the violent behavior will continue to be employed by the individual. Sports ethic now, and the last one we're going to look at. So three key arguments or assumptions. Athletes and those assessing athletes both respect, reward, task, commitment in sport. Identity and status are related to making sacrifices, striving for distinction, accepting risks, and refusing to accept limits in the pursuit of winning. And overconformity to the sports ethic stems from a widespread sense of anxiety and self-doubt among athletes. So Hughes and Coakley have described how athletes are taught to strive for distinction, accept no limits, make sacrifices, and play through pain and injury. Players are rewarded for this type of behavior, gaining praise from their peers, coaching staff, and media. So in a way, sports ethic can be considered how committed you are to the principles and values of your chosen sport. Hughes and Coakley also describe how all sporting behavior sits on a bell curve. Normal, everyday behavior sits at the heart of the curve. Now, on one tail, you have behavior that is referred to as positive deviance. This is when athletes pursue the principles of sport ethic to an unhealthy extent. Examples of positive deviance include dangerous or extreme weight loss strategies for sports such as bodybuilding, gymnastics, or some fighting codes. At the other end of the tail, you have negative deviance. So this refers to athlete behaviors that reject the importance of sport ethic. Examples might include athletes who disregard a coach's instruction to attend all trainings by failing to turn up to practices or games without prior notice. Another example of negative deviance is also the use of performance-enhancing drugs. So this perspective is well suited when discussing issues related to high performance or elite athletes, but it's less suited to recreational athletes. To summarize, we discussed the difference between internal and external perspectives of violence, and then we looked at instinct theory, hostile and instrumental aggression approach, social learning theory, and sport ethic. It's important to understand that theories of sport violence can be used to explain a range of problems relating to behavior in sport. We only discussed a small sample of different theories in this video, Neither of them were exhaustive, nor did they cover all of the different perspectives or themes relating to violence in sport. Lots to think about in this video. Complete your worksheet. Should be some really good questions, I think, come out of this, particularly when you discuss or compare and contrast the differences between those theories. So I'm looking forward to hearing all about them in our next theory lesson. Cheers.